Welcome to Zygor Guides, your source for the best and fastest way to level your characters in World of Warcraft and accomplish more in less time. Today we're diving headfirst into the Stonevault dungeon from the War Within expansion. The Stonevault is a compact, linear dungeon with 2 wings you can choose from after defeating the first boss. We'll guide you through the most efficient route and the key strategies you'll need to conquer this dungeon. As always, before forming a group for the Stonevault, let's discuss the critical utilities and tools you should have. The first thing you should be aware of is that there is a very potent curse called Void Infection in this dungeon. You should have at least 1, preferably 2 curse dispels in your group to manage this effectively. Second, there are several mobs with dangerous casts that need to be interrupted. Having 2 melee interrupts on hand for certain trash pulls and a range interrupt for one of the bosses will make things a lot smoother. Now that you know how to come in guns blazing, let's dive in. We kick things off with a large pull right at the entrance. This is a bloodlust moment, pulling the entire first hallway. Right away, you'll encounter an earth-influenced golem. Watch out for its 2 key abilities: Seismic Wave, a frontal attack directed at the tank, and Ground Pound, an AoE that applies a magic debuff. You can avoid the Ground Pound damage by line of sighting it. The real threat in this pull is the ghastly Void Soul. Its Howling Fear cast can wipe your group if it's not interrupted. You'll also be dealing with Cursed Heart invaders here. They apply a curse that needs to be dispelled quickly. This cast doesn't have a visible indicator until it's too late, so keep your eyes peeled and stay sharp. And their Arcing Void cast, a Chain Lightning, should be interrupted by anyone not handling the Void Soul. Finally, you'll face the Loader bots. These bots cast Pulverizing Pounce, creating a swirly that you'll need to dodge before they jump back into the group. Ranged players should stay close to keep the mobs grouped up for faster kills. After the initial pull, you'll encounter 2 more pulls with similar mob types. Pay special attention to the Void Souls on the right. They need to be interrupted quickly to prevent a wipe. As you approach the first boss, be cautious of the 2 earth-influenced golems. Don't get caught off guard by their back-to-back ground pound casts. Now, E.D.N.A is the first boss you'll face in the Stonevault. This fight is primarily a healer check, with mechanics that require good coordination but aren't overly complex. E.D.N.A's volatile spike ability will place spikes under 3 players. Avoid running into these or you'll die instantly. She'll then cast Refracting Beam, which should be used to break the spikes. However, breaking them applies damage over time to the group, so your healer needs to stay on top of things. After 2 cycles of spikes and beams, E.D.N.A will cast Earth Shatterer, dealing massive damage. The amount of damage increases if any spikes are left up, so make sure to break them all before this cast. E.D.N.A's final mechanic is Seismic Smash, which deals significant physical damage to the tank and applies the Seismic Reverberation debuff. The healer must dispel this debuff as the next Seismic Smash is being cast, reducing the damage the tank takes by 50%. The first Seismic Smash is the most dangerous, so be prepared. With E.D.N.A down, you now have 2 wings to choose from. We're heading towards the Forge, which ends with the Forge Speaker's boss fight. The first pull in this wing introduces 2 new mob types, the Engine Speaker and the Aspiring Forge Hands. These mobs primarily engage the tank with auto attacks and tank busters. You'll also have the 2 Cursed Heart invaders, so keep up with dispels and interrupts. Next up is a larger pull featuring the Forge-bound Mender and Forge Loader. The Mender is the primary threat here, casting Alloy Bolt at random players and restoring metals, which heals a mob for 40% of their max health. Prioritize interrupts on restoring metals, but don't let your group die to bolts if you have to choose. The Forge Loader will target random players with Lava Cannon, a large projectile that must be dodged. The next pull features some familiar enemies, the Loader bots. They've returned with their ground swirlies, so be ready to dodge again. Skip the 2 Loader bots in the middle of the room and move into a large pull, combining 2 groups and a patrol. Focus on controlling the Menders in these packs. After another small pull, you'll reach the second boss, Forge Speakers. This fight is packed with mechanics that can easily be lethal if not handled properly. Now, as you navigate the complexities of these challenging encounters, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer amount of mechanics to manage. If you've ever found yourself struggling to keep up with everything from avoiding deadly abilities to mastering complex skips, you might be wondering if there's a better way to enhance your World of Warcraft experience. Well, there is. Meet Zygor, the ultimate guide add-on for World of Warcraft. Zygor isn't just a leveling guide, it's your personal in-game assistant, helping you tackle everything from dungeons to earning gold with ease. Whether you're leveling a new character, optimizing your gear, or strategizing for endgame content, Zygor has you covered with its step-by-step guides, dynamic quest tracking, and even automated gear suggestions. So, the next time you're staring down a tough pull or planning out your next dungeon run, why not let Zygor take the stress out of the equation? Click the link in the description and get access to Zygor today. Now, back to the video. The Forged Speakers are two separate bosses, Speaker Brock and Speaker Dorlita. The first mechanic you'll encounter is Brock's Molten Metal Cast. This ability happens on a timer throughout the fight, and if it goes off, it deals significant damage to the group and applies a heavy slow for 8 seconds. Brock has a habit of leaping away before casting Molten Metal, making it essential to have a ranged interrupt ready. Missing this interrupt can lead to an instant wipe depending on the key level and timing, so stay vigilant. Meanwhile, Dorlita uses the Lava Cannon ability that we saw earlier from the loaders, targeting random players with a straight line projectile. She'll also hit the tank with Igneous Hammer, a magic damage tank buster. Brock will periodically cast Exhaust Vents, which really sets the tone for the fight's difficulty. 3 of the 4 vent spots around the room's edge will erupt with lethal flames, so make sure you're not standing on them early. You need to quickly identify a safe spot and move there as soon as possible. While Exhaust Vents is active, the group will take heavy damage and fire patches will fill the room. Following the Exhaust Vents, one of the 2 cube mechanics, Blazing Crescendo or Scrap Song, will occur. Brock creates the cube using Scrap Song, pushing it across the room where it waits for Dorlita to use it for Blazing Crescendo. Blazing Crescendo then pushes the cube into the center of the room, denying a significant portion of space before it explodes. The explosion sends out waves that cut through the room's non-vent areas and deal substantial group damage. The fight's rapid pace, with exhaust vents forcing movement and the cube's mechanics punishing any mispositions, makes this encounter particularly challenging. You'll also need to avoid lava cannon frontals while maneuvering in tight spaces. During the second Blazing Crescendo, Brock begins an Exhaust Vents cast simultaneously, creating a brutal overlap of mechanics. The group will take an enormous amount of damage here, making it critical to identify and move to the safe spot in time. One very important thing to note is that the bosses must be killed simultaneously or very close to each other. If one dies before the other, the surviving boss will start pulsing massive damage to the group, which can quickly lead to a wipe. After the boss fight, we hug the left to slip past the 2 loaders again. Then we avoid a patrolling loader on the left and use a crowd control like Sap or Imprison to avoid this pack and grab our minecar back to the central hub. Sap and Imprison specifically because they prevent the affected mob from entering combat while under its effect. As you proceed through Skarmorak's wing, you'll encounter some familiar mobs as well as new ones. The first pull consists of 3 engine speakers, which you've already faced, and a void-bound despoiler. The engine speaker will continue to deal increasing tank damage, so make sure to pay attention. The despoiler is a bit more challenging with its magic damage tank buster, Shadowclaw. It also has a large AoE ability, Void Burst, which deals trickling damage every second for 6 seconds to the entire group. Prepare your group to handle this burst of damage. Further down the hallway, you'll face a turned speaker and 2 void-bound howlers. The howlers cast Piercing Wail, a powerful group damage ability that also applies a debuff increasing the damage from the next Piercing Wail, so make sure to interrupt this whenever possible. The turned speaker has a single cast, Censoring Gear, which deals damage and briefly silences a random party member. It's good to interrupt this, but prioritize the howler's casts. There's a patrol in this hallway consisting of another turned speaker and a void-touched elemental. The elemental's ability, Crystal Salvo, creates purple swirlies that the group needs to dodge. As you move further down the hall, you'll encounter another small pull with 2 invaders and 1 speaker. The invaders will cast Arcing Void, which you should still aim to interrupt, and apply the Void Infection Curse, which needs to be dispelled quickly. You can handle these 3 pulls as you see fit, either chaining them together slowly, as shown here, or pulling them all at once if your group is prepared. The last group in this hallway consists of 2 howlers and 1 despoiler. Interrupt Piercing Wail and be prepared to survive the Void Burst. In Skarmorak's boss room, you'll find 2 separate pulls of 4 mobs each, along with a patrol of familiar enemies. Start by pulling the despoiler patrol on its own. After it casts Void Outburst, chain in the 4 mobs on the left, since the despoiler won't have time to cast it again before it dies, making this pull a little less intimidating. The final pull before the boss is an easier one, giving your group time to recover cooldowns. Just dodge the swirlies, decurse, and interrupt, and you'll soon be facing Skarmorak. Skarmorak is yet another boss that will heavily test your healer and require good coordination from your group. The fight begins with Skarmorak using Crystalline Smash on the tank, dealing heavy physical damage and spawning 3 crystal shards around the room. These shards must be killed one at a time, as they explode when you die, dealing significant damage. Killing 2 or more at once can be disastrous for your group. Following the Crystalline Smash, Skarmorak will cast Unstable Crash, creating a large circle around him that everyone must move out of. The crash will spawn orbs around the room, which will eventually despawn. Picking up these orbs provides a healing and damage boost against the shield Skarmorak creates later in the fight. Skarmorak will repeat this pattern of Crystalline Smash into Unstable Crash one more time before casting Fortified Shell, marking the beginning of the shield phase. Ensure all the shields are dead before Fortified Shield finishes casting, and make sure everyone has picked up at least 1 orb to maximize damage during this phase. Repeat the sequence until the boss is down. This fight can be deceptively difficult on higher difficulties due to the high incoming damage on the group. DPS players need to focus on the shards, as simply cleaving off the boss won't kill them in time. After Skarmorak falls, grab another minecart back to the central hub of the Stonevault. The final part of the dungeon lies to the south, with just a few more trash pulls before the last boss. First up are 2 Cursed Forge Honor Guards. These mobs have a strong physical tank buster and an ability called Shield Stampede. The Stampede is indicated by large blue arrows on the ground, targeting random players before the cast begins. Try to bait these charges into walls near your fighting area to maintain uptime and speed up the pull. Next, you'll face a larger pull with 2 more Honor Guards, 2 Benders from earlier, and a Rock Smasher. The Rock Smasher will cast Smash Rock, dealing heavy group damage and knocking players back. This also applies a debuff that increases the damage taken from future Smash Rock casts. Immediately after, the Smasher will follow up with Granite Eruption, creating brown swirlies that need to be dodged. The next pull consists of 1 Mender and 2 Cursed Forged Stone Shapers. The Stone Shapers will chain Stone Bolt casts on random enemies. Interrupt these when possible. The Stone Shapers also cast Earth Burst Totem, which summons a totem that the entire group must focus down quickly. If not killed, the totem will explode, wiping the entire group. These totems cannot be cleaved or AoE'd. They must be targeted and destroyed. The final trash pull in the dungeon consists of 2 groups, each with 1 Rock Smasher and 2 Stone Shapers. Pull them separately, line of sighting them back around the door into the hallway. These mobs don't have any new abilities, so just dodge swirlies, interrupt stone bolts, and kill Earth Burst totems. You can handle the final pull where it stands, using the same strategy as before. Once these mobs are down, you'll be ready to face the final boss of the Stonevault, Void Speaker Elirich. This boss is mechanically simpler than the previous 2, but still requires careful execution. The first mechanic to watch out for is Unbridled Void, a large and deadly frontal attack. This fight involves a lot of movement, so always have a plan to dodge this ability. Staying close to the boss can help you react more quickly. The main mechanic here is Void Corruption, a debuff with unlimited duration that is applied to all players. It deals ticking shadow damage every 3 seconds, with the damage increasing by 25% each tick. To remove Void Corruption, you need to move within 15 yards of a Void Rift. However, be careful. If you get too close without the Void Corruption debuff, the Rift will pull you in and kill you. The Rift will absorb your Void Corruption and then move to another spot in the room, indicated by a swirly appearing on the opposite side. There will only be 2 Void Rifts up at a time, hopping around the room. The final mechanic is Entropic Reckoning. When this is cast, you only have a few seconds to drop off a zone of entropy, which deals shadow damage to you and anybody nearby. Managing your Void Corruption and defensive abilities along with the timing of Entropic Reckoning is crucial to surviving this fight. Stacking your entropy zones together will help minimize the space denied in the fight, keeping the room clear for movement. The entropy zones remain on the ground for about 90 seconds. Another tip is to use a defensive cooldown and drop a new entropy zone in an existing one to conserve space in the room. Eventually, with all these strategies in place, Void Speaker Elirich will fall, marking the end of your journey through the Stonevault, hopefully with some good loot in hand. So, to wrap up, thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Zygor Guides for more World of Warcraft guides and walkthroughs. Got a strategy of your own or a question about the dungeon? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, keep leveling up, and we'll see you in the next video. Happy adventuring!